In the year 2497, humanity had breached the bounds of its solar system, reaching out into a galaxy teeming with diverse life forms and cultures. Among the countless species encountered, the Araxi stood out, not only for their striking appearance but also for their enigmatic social structure which strictly forbade any form of interaction with their females by non-Araxis. This was a law written into the fabric of their culture, punishable by the most severe measures. The Araxi, towering beings with luminous skin that shifted colors with their emotions, were a sight to behold. Their males were involved in all external affairs, representing their species in the Galactic Council and all interspecies transactions. The females, however, were shrouded in mystery, hidden away on their home planet, Elixia. Legends said that they possessed abilities far beyond what the public ever saw, potentially even shaping the very reality around them. But no outsider had ever confirmed such tales because, in Araxi society, females were considered sacred and inviolable. Lieutenant Michael Torres was an outlier in many respects. A member of the Human Galactic Exploration Division, he was known for his irrepressible curiosity and disregard for protocol, a combination that often landed him in trouble. When his fleet arrived at the edge of Araxi space for a routine diplomatic mission, he found himself inexplicably drawn to the mysteries of Elixia. The more he learned about the Araxi's laws, the deeper his fascination grew. "Mike, you need to understand," Captain Lewis had warned him when they first arrived. "This isn't just about diplomacy. It's about respecting their fundamental laws. An infraction could set human-Araxi relations back decades." But Michael wasn't interested in diplomacy. He was interested in understanding, in connecting. The more he was told no, the more he wanted to find out why. One night, as the human delegation attended a banquet held in their honor on the Araxi flagship, Michael's chance came. He overheard a group of Araxi males discussing a rare ceremonial event that would take place on Elixia. It would be the first time in centuries that non-Araxis could come close, though still not interact with their females. The event was called the Rite of the Stellar Veil, a mystical ceremony where the abilities of the Araxi females were said to renew the planet's energy fields. It was the closest any outsider could legally get to witnessing the power of Araxi females. Driven by a mix of defiance and intrigue, Michael made up his mind. He would attend the rite, not just as a bystander, but as a participant. He knew the risks. He understood the potential fallout, but something deep within him needed to see, to know. Over the next few days, he used his charm and a fair bit of cunning to get closer to the details of the ceremony. He befriended a young Araxi officer named Zilar, who, fascinated by human culture, grew surprisingly close to Michael. Through this new friendship, Michael learned that the ceremony would not only be heavily guarded, but also enchanted with ancient protections. The night before the ceremony, Michael lay in his cabin, staring at the metallic ceiling, knowing he was about to breach a cultural barrier that had stood unchallenged for ages. He wasn't sure what awaited him on Elixia, nor could he have anticipated the chain of events he was about to set in motion. As dawn broke over the Araxi flagship, Michael dressed in the ceremonial garb Zalar had provided him, a disguise meant to blend in with the Araxi priests. His heart raced as he prepared to step onto the shuttle that would take him to Elixia, to the very heart of the Forbidden. He was about to break the ultimate taboo, and in doing so, he would either bridge a cosmic divide or shatter the fragile peace that held between the human race and the mysterious Araxi. It was a gamble of galactic proportions, and Michael was all in. As the shuttle descended through the ethereal mists of Elixia, Michael's senses were besieged by the alien beauty of the planet. The landscape was a tapestry of glowing flora and bioluminescent rivers that meandered through fields of crystalline structures. Above, the sky pulsed with the light of a binary star system, casting a perpetual twilight over the land. The ceremony was to be held in an ancient grove, sacred to the Araxi, and hidden deep within a forest of towering silvery trees. Michael, cloaked in his ceremonial garb, moved silently among the Araxi priests and acolytes, his heart pounding not just with fear of discovery, but with the sheer thrill of the unknown. Zellar had briefed him just enough to avoid immediate detection, but no amount of preparation could have truly readied him for what was to come. As the procession approached the grove, the air grew thick with a palpable energy. The Araxi began to chant in their flowing, melodic language, a sound that seemed to harmonize naturally with the vibrations of the planet itself. Michael felt the words twist around him, a language he didn't understand yet felt intimately, as if it spoke directly to the soul. In the center of the grove stood a circle of statues, each carved from a different luminescent mineral and representing an Araxi deity. The females of the species began to emerge from the surrounding forest, their forms ethereal, their movements graceful and fluid. Their skin shimmered with the same luminous quality as the males, but with colors that were brighter, more varied, and ever-changing with their emotions. They took their places around the statues, their presence commanding silence, even among the murmuring priests. The ceremony commenced with the high priestess, a figure of awe among her people, stepping forward. She raised her arms, and the ground itself seemed to respond, with a gentle hum rising up from the earth. Michael watched, mesmerized, as the air around the priestess began to shimmer, distorting the light and shadow until they seemed to merge. What happened next was beyond his comprehension. The priestess and her acolytes began to sing, their voices not just heard but felt, vibrating through every atom of his being. The statues glowed more intensely, and the very fabric of reality appeared to thin, revealing fleeting glimpses of other places, other times, visions of distant worlds, ancient pasts, and possible futures. Michael's mind struggled to grasp the phenomenon unfolding before him. It wasn't just a ceremony. It was a display of power that blurred the lines between magic and science, a manipulation of energy and matter that defied all known physics. Suddenly, a disturbance rippled through the grove. An Araxi male, one of the priests, stumbled, his colors flickering wildly with distress. He pointed directly at Michael, shouting in a frantic tone. Immediately, all eyes turned towards him, and the sacred harmony of the ceremony shattered. In a heartbeat, the serene expressions of the Araxi females transformed into masks of fury and shock. The high priestess herself looked directly at Michael, her eyes piercing through his disguise. The connection he had sought so recklessly was abruptly severed by the realization of his intrusion. Guards rushed towards him, their staffs charged with some form of energy. Michael's first instinct was to run, but he knew there was no escape from the consequences of his actions. Instead, he stood his ground, meeting the high priestess's gaze with a mix of defiance and regret. She approached him slowly, her entourage holding back the guards with a simple gesture. Stopping just a breath away, she spoke, her voice carrying a power that felt like it could reshape worlds. "Why?" she asked, the simplicity of the question laden with an infinite complexity. Michael's response was a gamble, his last hope at salvaging this catastrophic breach. "To understand," he whispered. "To connect." The high priestess looked at him, her expression unreadable. The grove fell silent, every being present waiting for her decision. What came next would determine not just Michael's fate, but potentially the future of all interactions between humans and the Araxi. The high priestess's eyes glowed with a swirling mosaic of colors, reflecting the tumult of thoughts and emotions within her. She studied Michael for a long moment, her gaze piercing deep into his soul. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, the natural bioluminescence dimming slightly, as if nature itself was awaiting her verdict. "Your intrusion has broken our most sacred law," she began, her voice echoing softly through the grove. "Yet your motive, this desire to connect, to understand, carries a sincerity that cannot be easily dismissed." Her words hung in the air, a thread of empathy woven through the stern fabric of her authority. Around them, the other Araxi females murmured among themselves, their skin shifting through shades of apprehension and curiosity. The high priestess raised her hand, silencing them with a subtle gesture. She then turned back to Michael, her next words shaping the contours of an unprecedented decision. "We stand at a precipice," she declared, "between the sanctity of our traditions and the potential of new understanding. Today, we choose a path not often taken by the Araxi." She signaled to the guards to lower their weapons, then addressed Michael directly. "You will face consequences, but they will not be punishment. Instead, you will embark on a trial to prove the worth of your intentions." Michael nodded, accepting her judgment with a mixture of relief and newfound responsibility. The High Priestess continued, "You will learn our ways, understand our laws, and respect our boundaries. Only through this can true connection be forged." As the ceremony resumed, albeit with a lingering tension, Michael was led away by Zelar, who had been watching from the fringes, his emotions a tumultuous storm of colors. "I never expected you to go this far," Zelar whispered, as they walked back toward the shuttle. "But perhaps, in your rashness, you have opened a door that even we did not dare to approach." The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Michael was introduced to the complexities of Araxi culture, from their advanced environmental technologies which intertwined nature and science in ways humanity had only begun to imagine, to their intricate social rituals and governance systems. He was allowed to observe, to ask questions, and to interact within the strict guidelines set for him. As he delved deeper into their world, Michael began to see the Araxi not just as mysterious and aloof beings, but as a civilization striving to balance profound power with profound vulnerability. He learned that their isolation of females was not merely cultural, but a protective measure against potential exploitation of their unique abilities, which, if misused, could lead to catastrophic consequences. Meanwhile, back among the human delegation, Captain Lewis and the others were caught in a diplomatic storm. News of Michael's breach had reached other species, stirring a mix of condemnation and intrigue across the Galactic Council. Lewis worked tirelessly to smooth the ripples caused by the incident, using it as a pivot to strengthen dialogue and promote deeper interspecies understanding. Throughout this time, Michael's perspective shifted. What began as a quest driven by curiosity evolved into a profound respect for the Araxi's reasons for secrecy and protection. He documented everything, preparing a detailed report that he hoped would bridge the gap between human recklessness and Araxi reticence. As his trial period neared its end, Michael stood once again before the High Priestess, not as an intruder this time, but as a student who had strived to learn and understand. The grove was peaceful, the earlier tension replaced by a cautious optimism. The High Priestess, now more familiar to Michael, offered him a slight smile. "You have shown us that connection can be more than a breach. It can be a building bridge," she said. "Let this be the beginning of a new chapter between our peoples, one written with mutual respect and shared knowledge." With her blessing, Michael was allowed to return to his people, carrying with him not just his experiences but also a comprehensive treaty proposal designed to ensure that future interactions would be governed by consent and mutual respect. The Galactic Council would soon be in session, and Michael's report was to be its cornerstone, potentially reshaping human-Araxi relations for generations to come. Under the pale light of Elixia's twin stars, the Galactic Council convened, a grand assembly that drew representatives from across the known universe. The circular chamber buzzed with the low murmur of 100 languages, while holographic translators flickered in synchronization, casting an ethereal glow over the delegates. At the heart of this gathering, Michael prepared to present his report, a document dense with insights and proposals that could either mend fences or deepen the chasm between species. Captain Lewis stood beside him, a steadying presence. "Remember, it's not just about facts," he whispered. "It's about framing them. The story you tell today will shape our future." Michael nodded, taking a deep breath as he stepped forward. The room fell silent, all eyes on him, the human who had dared to defy sacred laws in pursuit of understanding. He began by recounting his experiences, not shying away from his initial transgression, but emphasizing his journey through the Araxi culture, the lessons he learned, and the respect he had gained for their traditions and concerns. As he spoke, the vivid descriptions of Elixia's ceremonies and the detailed explanation of Araxi powers resonated in the chamber. His words bridged by visuals of shimmering groves and ethereal beings. He laid bare the vulnerability of the Araxi female's powers, explaining how their abilities, if misused, could unravel the fabric of reality itself. To protect such power is not only prudent but necessary, Michael declared, his voice firm. However, isolation can breed misunderstanding and fear. What we propose is a pathway to interaction that respects the very essence of Araxi sovereignty while fostering an environment of trust and cooperation. He unveiled the treaty proposal, crafted in collaboration with Araxi leaders and human diplomats. It outlined strict protocols for cultural exchange, scientific collaboration, and mutual protection of sacred sites. It also proposed the establishment of a bilateral council, tasked with overseeing interactions and ensuring that both parties adhered to agreed-upon boundaries. The response was mixed. Some delegates nodded in agreement, seeing the potential for a model that could be replicated in other interspecies relations. Others were skeptical, wary of the implications of sharing power with a species whose abilities were still not fully understood. A representative from the Zeltrax Confederacy, a coalition known for their rigid approach to law and order, raised a pointed question. How can we ensure that these protocols are not merely formalities, but are actively enforced? How do we prevent another incident like the one initiated by Lieutenant Torres? Michael responded with a measured calmness. Accountability must be the cornerstone of this treaty. Just as I have faced consequences for my actions, any breach of this agreement must be met with clear, agreed-upon repercussions. Moreover, we propose regular reviews of the treaty terms, with adjustments made as needed to adapt to evolving understandings and conditions. The debate that followed was intense and exhaustive. Each species brought its own perspectives and prejudices to the table, dissecting every clause, every implication of the proposed treaty. Throughout it all, Michael stood firm, his resolve forged in the fires of his experiences on Elixia. As the hours turned into days, a consensus slowly began to emerge. The treaty was not perfect, no document ever could be, but it was a beginning, a sign of good faith from both humans and Araxis that could lay the groundwork for future cooperation. Finally, as the twin stars of Elixia began to set, casting long shadows over the council chamber, the treaty was put to a vote. One by one, the representatives cast their votes, the tallies displayed in real time above the chamber floor. The final count was a narrow victory for diplomacy. The treaty was ratified, a testament to the power of dialogue and understanding over isolation and fear. As the council adjourned, Michael felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had come to Elixia as a curious intruder, but he left as a bridge builder, his own perceptions forever changed by the worlds he had seen and the voices he had heard. Back on the shuttle returning to the human fleet, Captain Lewis clapped Michael on the back. "You did well, Lieutenant. Let's hope this is just the start of something greater." Michael looked out at the stars, a vast canvas of possibilities stretching out before him. "Yes, let's hope," he murmured, his eyes reflecting the starlight, his mind already racing toward the future. The ratified treaty marked a new era in human-Araxi relations, and with it, a flurry of joint initiatives began to take shape. Michael found himself at the forefront of these efforts, his unique experiences on Elixia making him an invaluable bridge between the two cultures. He was assigned to the newly established Bilateral Council, a body composed of equal parts human and Araxi representatives, charged with the treaty's implementation and oversight. The Council's first task was to establish the framework for a series of exchange programs. These were designed not only to foster scientific and cultural exchange, but also to build a foundation of personal relationships and mutual understanding between individuals from both species. The programs ranged from academic exchanges involving scholars and researchers to artistic collaborations that sought to blend human and Araxi aesthetics into new forms of expression. One of the more ambitious projects was the development of a joint research facility on Elixia, dedicated to studying the unique properties of the planet's bioluminescent flora and its potential applications in bioengineering. The facility was to be staffed by teams of both human and Araxi scientists, working side by side. Michael was deeply involved in the planning and setup of the facility, his days filled with meetings, site visits, and endless discussions about safety protocols, research agendas, and cultural sensitivity training for all participants. As the facility neared completion, Michael took a moment to tour the site with Dr. Sira Milan, an Araxi biologist whom he had met during his initial visit to Elixia. The building itself was a marvel of bio-architectural design, seamlessly integrated into the surrounding forest, its walls pulsing gently with light absorbed during the day and released at night. "This facility," Sira said as they walked through the main research lab, "represents not just a shared space for science, but a metaphor for what we can achieve together. These plants," she gestured to a row of glowing specimens, "are individual entities, yet they contribute to the forest's overall health and resilience. Similarly, we, as individual species, can work together to enhance the well-being of our galaxy." Michael nodded, impressed by the analogy. "It's about symbiosis then, not just cooperation." "Exactly." Sira smiled. "Symbiosis requires understanding and adaptation from all involved parties. It's not always easy, but the benefits can be extraordinary." The success of the research facility spurred other collaborative efforts. Cultural festivals were organized, featuring art, music, and dance from both human and Araxi traditions, drawing large crowds and media coverage across the galaxy. These festivals not only entertained but also educated, showcasing the richness of each culture and the potential of their combined creativity. Meanwhile, Michael's personal life also underwent transformation. His constant interactions with the Araxi and his deep dive into their culture had changed him in subtle ways. He found himself more patient, more attuned to the nuances of communication and expression. This personal growth did not go unnoticed. His colleagues on the Bilateral Council respected him for his insights and his balanced approach to complex issues. As the first anniversary of the treaty's ratification approached, Michael was asked to give a speech at the celebration. He stood before a mixed audience of humans and Araxi, feeling the weight of the occasion. He spoke about the achievements of the past year, but focused more on the future. "We have laid the groundwork for a lasting partnership," he said, "but the true test will be how we handle the challenges that lie ahead. We must continue to strive not just for cooperation, but for real understanding. We must be willing to confront our differences and embrace our common goals with open hearts and open minds." The applause that followed was heartfelt, a sound that resonated with hope and promise. As he stepped down from the podium, Sira was there to meet him, her luminescent skin reflecting her pride and optimism. "Your words," she said, "they give us all hope that this is only the beginning of our shared story." Michael smiled, looking out over the faces in the crowd, human and Araxi alike. The road ahead was uncertain and would undoubtedly be filled with challenges, but for the first time, he felt assured that they were on the right path, one that would lead to a deeper connection than any of them had previously imagined. Amid the burgeoning partnership, a challenge emerged that would test the resilience of the human-Araxi alliance. A rogue faction within the Araxi, opposed to the deepening ties with humanity, began to stir unrest. They propagated fears that the blending of cultures would dilute their heritage and possibly exploit the Araxi's unique abilities. As whispers of dissent grew into vocal opposition, the situation required delicate handling to prevent a full-scale diplomatic crisis. Michael found himself once again in a critical position, tasked with navigating these turbulent waters. The Bilateral Council convened emergency sessions, addressing the rising tensions with a series of community forums designed to air grievances and dispel myths. Michael worked tirelessly, facilitating discussions between dissenting Araxi and proponents of the treaty, trying to find a middle ground. During one such forum, a prominent member of the opposition, an Araxi elder named Threx, voiced his concerns. "Our traditions have survived millennia," Threx argued, his skin flickering with hues of distress. "This treaty, while well-intentioned, risks exposing our deepest secrets to exploitation. We must protect our heritage, not parade it for the galaxy to see." Michael listened intently, acknowledging the elder's fears. "Your concerns are valid," he responded, his tone respectful. "But let us consider that isolation can breed misconceptions and fear. By sharing our cultures, we gain allies who can help us protect our heritage. We are not diluting our culture. we are strengthening its understanding and appreciation across the stars. The debate continued, with emotions running high, but Michael's calm demeanor and genuine empathy gradually won over some of the skeptics. He proposed the establishment of a cultural safeguard committee, with representatives from both human and Araxi sides, to oversee all cultural exchanges and ensure they were conducted with respect and caution. Meanwhile, beyond the chambers and forum halls, Michael engaged in quieter, more personal diplomacy. He visited communities, accompanied by Araxi leaders who supported the treaty, to demonstrate the tangible benefits of human-Araxi cooperation. Together, they inaugurated new facilities and projects, from hybrid agricultural stations that combined human technology with Araxi environmental techniques, to educational programs where children of both species could learn about each other's worlds. These efforts culminated in a significant event hosted on Elixia, attended by delegates from various galactic civilizations. The event showcased the achievements of the treaty, exhibits of collaborative technologies, presentations on joint scientific discoveries, and performances by mixed-species art ensembles. Michael, alongside Sira and other council members, guided visitors through the event, their pride in their work evident. As the event drew to a close, the High Priestess, who had watched the unfolding partnership with a careful but hopeful eye, addressed the assembly. Her speech acknowledged the challenges and reaffirmed the Araxi commitment to the treaty. "Today, we see the fruits of our courage to reach beyond fear and suspicion," she stated, her voice resonant and clear. "Let us continue on this path, fortified by our shared successes and enlightened by our mutual respect." The ceremony ended with the signing of an addendum to the original treaty, incorporating the new safeguards and expanding on the areas of cooperation. Michael felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The work had been hard, the obstacles many, but the results spoke for themselves. As the participants mingled after the ceremony, Michael found himself beside Sira, looking out over a sea of mingling humans and Araxi. "What we've built won't be easily broken," he mused, more to himself than to her. Sira nodded, her colors softly vibrant in the fading light. "Indeed, Michael, and should it ever come under threat, it will be defended just as fiercely. For now, our futures are intertwined. We protect it together." Michael's gaze lingered on the horizon, where the twin stars of Elixia were setting, casting a hopeful glow. The path forward was indeed intertwined, woven from countless acts of understanding and courage. As the stars gave way to the night, he felt ready for whatever the future might hold, confident in the strength of the bonds they had forged.